the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Russian state media says Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is in Moscow with his family, with Kremlin sources reportedly saying they have been granted asylum there. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. Here, the Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Assad's barbaric regime in Syria as he calls for the restoration of peace and stability. The Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. Meanwhile, in the US, President Joe Biden is set to meet with his national security team in the coming hours for an update on the situation. Strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Travel is heavily disrupted, train services are delayed and the Severn Bridge remains closed. 200,000 homes are still without electricity after the storm brought 93-mile-an-hour winds on Saturday. In other news, the leader of Edinburgh City Council has been suspended by the Labour Party after claims he sent inappropriate sexual messages to Ukrainian refugees, including through a dating app. Police are now investigating a report of Cammy Day's behaviour made through the council's whistleblowing service. Opposition leaders, including from the SNP, are calling for his immediate resignation, describing the allegations as beyond shocking. The leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, says the claims are deeply distressing and insists the party acted swiftly when they were alerted on Saturday. Mr Day, who denies any contact from police, has not commented on the allegations. Now, thousands gathered for a march against anti-Semitism that took place in London today. The route passed through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. Now, a man has died in a fire in Cumbria, with emergency services still at the scene and people warned to stay away from the town. Cumbria police said the victim in his 40s was found in the property in Kirby, Lonsdale, and pronounced dead at the scene. The fire broke out at the apartments opposite the Red Dragon pub in Main Street. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homelessness shelter run by a charity that he was introduced to by his late mother. William wore one of the Passage charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees on Thursday. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his late mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Lots to come on today's show. Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He's also a former Conservative chairman, Richard Fuller. Going to be asking him about the rise of reform. Has Camilla Badenoch made enough of an impact in her first few weeks in office? And the Reform UK MP, Rupert Lowe, will be joining me. He's the MP for Great Yarmouth, as you know. I'm going to be asking him about Elon Musk's proposed donation to the party, $100 million. Is that going to be coming through for reform? I'm also going to be speaking to a leading human rights lawyer who's threatening to sue the Football Association over those rainbow armbands, also representing a woman who's been banned from Newcastle United for expressing apparently anti-trans views. All she really asks is whether a man can be a woman. So I'll be drilling into that a little later. Welcome back. Well, a little earlier I spoke to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Richard Fuller. This is what he had to say. Former Tory chairman and Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Richard Fuller, joins me now in the GB News studio. Lovely to see you this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for being here.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, but I am going to start by quizzing you about Nigel Farage, of all people, because he appeared at the Parliamentarian of the Year Awards, which The Spectator put on in the week, and he said this: "I've got a bit of a shock for you. I think that I and 4 other people, the newcomers into Parliament this year in the general election, were a shock, and I'm very sorry, but at the next general election in 2029 or before, there will be hundreds of newcomers under the Reform UK label." He said, "We are about to witness a political revolution, the likes of which we have not seen since Labour after the First World War. Politics is about to change in the most astonishing way. Newcomers will win the next election." How concerned should Westminster be about the rise of Farage, particularly in the Conservative Party?
Well, I think we should be worried about it because obviously the last election, with people voting for Reform and not voting Conservative, we've ended up with a Labour government with a very large majority that's doing things that Reform voters and Conservative voters don't think is right, like taking away the winter fuel allowance. It's very damaging. Jobs tax that's going to punish small businesses. So Mr Farage is talking big, but the fundamental maths of Westminster remain the same, which is we have a Labour government and we need to unite as opposition parties to try and defend the values that we share.
So when you say unite as opposition parties, do you think a time will come that Reform and the Tories will have to get their heads together, form some kind of alliance to keep Labour out of power next time round?
Well, I don't know about that. By uniting, we saw that this week in the second reading of when Labour were trying to put through this jobs tax, and we had Liberal Democrats, Conservatives, Democrat Unionists, Scottish Nationalists and Reform voters, MPs, all voting the same way. We'll recognise that the main challenges for this country is a Labour government doesn't seem to have a grip on the economy and is making some very poor choices. And that's where I think we need to put our heads together, whether you're Reform, Liberal Democrat or Conservative.
But from a practical perspective, come the next general election, and I appreciate we've only just had an election, and you were helped to spearhead the Conservatives' campaign, something's got to change here, because you can't have Reform on the right of the Conservatives and the Conservatives as they are right now, not having conversations, not forming some kind of deal. Maybe it's about some of you standing aside in some seats, some of Reform standing aside in others. How else can you defeat Labour? You can't have the right split like this. So there's going to have to be some serious conversations between Camilla Badenoch and Nigel Farage. And yet Camilla Badenoch doesn't want to entertain the idea of speaking to Reform, even though you know, Mr Fuller, that a lot of Reform voters in the last general election are former Tories.
Well, I think that question is directly at Mr. Farage, because he says he wants to destroy the Conservative Party. You don't go into a discussion with someone to say, hey, let's all get together with an opening line is, I want to destroy you. That isn't the right approach. So Mr. Farage, I think he has to... You're right to say that it's early days. So we'll see in a couple of years' time, will Mr. Farage's rhetoric change? Will he stop saying that he wants to destroy the Conservative Party? Will he look at the issues that you've just raised, that if the vote is split from people who have conservative principles, that we get another Labour government with a big majority doing damage to our country, that is for Mr. Farage to say, you know what, I was wrong. I didn't want to destroy the Conservative Party. Now let's see how we can make sure that we get rid of a Labour government that's doing damage in the country.
Why are we even in this position? Reform and Nigel Farage were on zero when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. A lot of this is the Tories making, isn't it? The rise of Nigel Farage is the Tories' fault.
It's the parliamentary party, actually. It's not the Conservative Party. We've got very good activists, very good councillors across the country. But there was a problem with the Conservative Parliamentary Party between 2019 and 2024. We did have COVID. That was a big issue. Took us off track.
Only since 2019?
I think fundamentally the problem was 2024, which is where it looked like because we were in 2019, we were there to deliver on, get Brexit done and to take advantage of the new opportunities having left the European Union. People feel disconnected from the people in this country who make decisions for them.
Yes.
And the Conservative Party had the opportunity to say, we want to put you back in control. And over 5 years, we took our eye off the ball. We weren't delivering on things.
That's an understatement. You didn't deliver on any of your manifesto key pledges.
Well, we did on a number. We got Brexit done, which is number one thing.
You didn't deliver on immigration. You didn't deliver on tax. Those are the two things that unfortunately cost Rishi Sunak the last general election.
So let's just separate the two. So I think on immigration, you're right. We didn't deliver on that. And that's fundamental thinking we have to do. And Kemi Badenoch's already said that we need to go back to the drawing board on that and work out what we need to do. My personal view is a large part of the issues on immigration aren't to do with all the controls. It's to do with how we see our economy, how we want to grow our economy. And so we need to do our thinking about that. But then on taxation, you know, I'm a big believer in lower taxation. I had to vote for tax increases. They're not in my DNA, but that was because we had to pay back the bills from all the money we put out for COVID, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. You've got to pay your bills when you incur them. So I think that was the reason. But your fundamental point, which is the Conservative Party needs to focus on getting back to being a party that can credibly say, we want to reduce your taxes, make your household budget better for families, is what we want to do, not what Labour is doing, which is increasing taxes on.
Just going back to my point about reform and Farage being on zero when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, in retrospect, was the ditching of Boris Johnson a massive mistake by the Parliamentary Party?
Well, I've been asked this question a number of times. My view in the last Parliament was we should not have got rid of Boris Johnson. I think that was a mistake, and my colleagues were asking the wrong question. They were saying, let's get rid of Boris Johnson. You should never get rid of a Prime Minister midterm unless you really, really have to. That's just a bad thing to do because it's difficult to be Prime Minister. You can't put someone in on day one, essentially on a moving train 100 miles an hour and think that things are going to go well unless you've really thought about that. So my personal view has always been it was wrong to get rid of Boris Johnson.
Do you think Kemi Badenoch's made a strong enough start? I don't mind telling you, Mr. Fuller, that we were at the GB News Christmas party last night. Thankfully, I'm teetotal, so I'm fresh as a daisy this morning.
Yes, you are.
Can't say the same for some of my colleagues, but that's another story. And there was a bit of a discussion about how the Leader of the Opposition had started, you know, slightly shaky at PMQs. Somebody sort of made the point that she seems to have toned down a bit on some of her more punchy rhetoric during the campaign. Is she sort of trying to play it a little bit safe? Because actually, the converse argument to that is Kemi Badenoch's got nothing to lose and everything to gain from just taking the fight to Labour. And yet, to be fair, we've spent a lot of this interview, I appreciate they're my questions, but people are talking more about Nigel Farage being the opposition than Kemi Badenoch. That's a problem, isn't it?
Well, Kemi's trying to get a programme for government that is in 5 years' time, not trying to grab headlines. Today, she's been very clear that she doesn't want to come out with policy after policy after policy right now. And that's because we need a fundamental rethink about how government operates in this country. And that's what she's tasking her shadow cabinet, including me, to think about. What I like about Kemi is that she is clear. She has very strong conservative principles. I think they're going to resonate with the people of this country. Certainly where I come from, in Bedfordshire, people feel very strongly positive about what she can do and what she can offer to this country. So I think let's watch this space. It takes time to grow into the role of being a leader of a country. It isn't just about sound bites. Kemi's very clear about that. It's about working out a programme for government that can gain the trust of the people, and that's what she's focused on.
Lots more still to come on the Camilla Tominey show today. Former Labour Minister Bill Rammell will join me to talk about Starmer's 6 milestones, and I'll be joined by the Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Back in just a jiffy. Don't move a muscle.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is some of her delicious hummus. We both love hummus. This is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here. So can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No.
I think
it's always chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafibre or water to help with consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, look, I'm not a vegan, I love my steaks, I'll just get out of there now. But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods, so algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods. For me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top.
That sounds
and there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining me now is former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Bill, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed for appearing on my GB News show. Let's have a chat about this reset speech that wasn't a reset, according to the Labour Party press office, on Thursday at Pinewood. I was there. I did listen to Keir Starmer's speech, but I must confess, Bill, I was left a little confused. I can't tell the difference between his pillars, his pledges, his milestones, his missions. Are you clear? Could you tell me now what his 5 missions and 6 milestones are?
Yes, look, I mean, I'm the first to acknowledge that I think our starting government has been rocky. Whether it was a lack of preparation, the Sue Gray stuff or whatever, it's not been the most seamless transition to government. I think there should have been greater urgency. Frankly, I think there should have been an emergency budget within weeks of the general election, and this plan for change, and it is the right plan for change, should have come in early September. And all of that would have created a sense of momentum and change, which is what the country voted for. But the other thing that I think is really important is we need a narrative about what the government is doing, why it's doing it, and how it's doing it. And if I can say, as a former minister in Tony Blair's government, Tony Blair was brilliant at doing that every week, giving that sense of direction. Now, we haven't quite got it yet. The policies in terms of, significant house building, delivering infrastructure projects, cutting waiting lists within the National Health Service, getting people back to work and improving living standards. All of that is the right agenda for change, but we need to explain it and articulate it more clearly.
Is it just the case, and you mentioned Tony Blair there, that comparatively Keir Starmer is a really bad politician and not a great Prime Minister? He has got a problem with comms. You've identified very fairly, considering that you're coming from a left-wing standpoint, the fact that he can't land these messages clearly because they're so confused. So the problem, I think, is Starmer, isn't it, Bill?
Well, look, I think Keir is a very, very decent public servant. I think he is a good Prime Minister, and he's making the...
Really?
And I think he's making the right decisions. Yeah, the budget was necessary. These plans for change are what people voted for and can deliver the kind of opportunities and prosperity we need. But I would acknowledge Keir is not in the same league as a communicator as Tony Blair. Frankly, no one in Parliament today is. And you've got to work with what you've got. But I do think, and it needs to develop, and it needs to develop urgently. All the building blocks are there, but they need to be weaved together into a coherent narrative. And I think as well, some of that is about not just Keir doing the communications. I am struck with the new government that almost every major announcement, Keir is backing it up. Now, sometimes that needs to happen, but there are other effective communicators in the Cabinet who I think can take on that task as well.
So he could perhaps delegate more. You say about people voting for that plan for change. Look, I agree with you on the urgent need for house building, and I think that 1.5 million target is ambitious, and everybody's hoping that the Labour government is able to meet it. But when it comes to the budget, nobody voted for pensioners to be stripped of their winter fuel allowance. There's a story in The Observer today, Bill, The Observer, saying that some people are skipping meals because they're worried about their energy bills. We obviously know about the assault on farmers, which prompted a mass protest in Parliament. Nobody voted, I believe, for an increase in employers' national insurance, which has an impact on the worker, whether you like it or not. So you're saying he's a good Prime Minister. Is he? I mean, this first 5 months in office has been a bit of an unmitigated disaster. You can't advocate, for instance, this assault on pensioners, Bill.
Well, look, there's always been a case for means testing the winter fuel allowance. For example, that's why the Tories in the 2017 general election backed means testing. So I think that case is a sound one. I think the threshold is too low, and I hope that change will come on that front. But look, we can have a debate about the size of the fiscal black hole that we inherited, but the reality is it's there. The Office for Budget Responsibility has said that if it knew back in March, around the time of the last Tory budget, what it knows now, its forecast would have been materially different. That's as close as the OBR comes to saying that the last government lied to them. There were a whole host of spending commitments, like hospitals, like defence, that simply weren't funded. And baked into the forward Tory spending plans were cuts to non-protected areas that were colossal, and even the Tories, had they won the general election, would not have implemented. So, I think the budget was justified. I think some of the opposition is overblown. Farmers can still pass on without inheritance tax £3 million worth of assets, and then they get a reduction.
Well, they dispute that figure.
Well, I know they do, but I don't think credibly.
Okay.
You know, the figure is backed up by the OBR and the IFS, and it is about important changes so that we can fund public service. And I'll tell you this, Camilla, I think the building blocks are there. As we start to deliver, we can turn this round politically. And you've just been interviewing Richard Fuller. The right in politics is split today in the way that the left was split in the 1980s.
Well, let's talk about that, because actually I would suggest that the latest polling for Wales, which puts Reform ahead of Labour, and then one poll this week, OK, an outlier, but again seems to suggest that Reform is absolutely nipping at Starmer's heels already. The biggest threat to Labour is actually Nigel Farage. And yet he comes out with a plan for change, all of these pledges, missions and milestones. Not one of them mentions anything concrete on immigration beyond, oh, it needs to come down.
Well, it needs to come down significantly. And what Keir said at the press conference...
Put a cap on it, then.
Yeah,
Put a cap on it.
But hold on. What Keir said at the press conference is it's baked in as an absolute necessity in the government's plans. And I tell you this, you know, we're already making some progress. So the scale of deportations is up by 30% since the general election. But if Labour does not get net migration down to the low hundreds of thousands by the next general election, we will be toast. And, you know, the threat from Reform, I think the poll this week was an outlier. The other polls, they're not brilliant for the government, but they put Labour a couple of percent ahead with Reform in third place. It's not where we want to be. But I think part of what needs to happen is you need to take on Reform. You know, Farage is great as an insurrectionist. He's not good at deliverable solutions.
Okay.
You know, his plan to send people back to France is simply not workable. You know, he was committed at the general election to £70 billion worth of cuts in public spending. That needs exposing.
But I note that you've mentioned there, Bill, like legal migration being down to the low hundreds of thousands. This perhaps is a problem that I identified at the Plan for Change launch. I spoke to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. I said to her, look, the IFS and the OBR seem to have baked in this figure that legal migration should be around 350,000 a year. Many voters think that's still too high. I get that they'll benefit from immigration coming down from that 900,000 high from 2023. What other direction can it go in? And Yvette Cooper couldn't commit to me to saying that she thought the 350,000 figure was too high. I therefore could only come to the conclusion that actually Keir Starmer, a man who has previously described controlling the borders as inherently racist, and Yvette Cooper, a woman who says she'll smash the gangs, but nobody finds the claim quite credible, neither of them can actually say what legal migration should be. That's a massive problem, Bill.
Well, look, it is very clear, and you're right, the 350,000 is now baked into the forward plans. That is a significant reduction. I know that Keir and Yvette and the government want to get it lower than that. And that means, one, a focus on illegal migration. But where the Tories got it wrong was that's an incredibly small proportion of the net migration figures. It's about 3%. What we've got to do is to get more British people taking jobs that people from overseas currently do. That means you need to raise the minimum wage. And one of the very welcome aspects of the budget was a triple the rate of inflation increase in the minimum wage. We need to review and cut the list of acceptable sectors that can recruit foreign workers.
Okay.
And the government's already started that process. But the numbers need to come down and need to come down significantly.
We're going to be speaking to the Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe, and we'll also be talking about, with him, that poll that does put Reform ahead of Labour. What does it all mean for the future of politics in Westminster? We'll be discussing that and more next. Don't go anywhere.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland, with plenty of winter sunshine to start the day, perhaps even with some freezing fog patches around that may be slow to lift. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of blue sky once again, but there will be a touch of frost too, so cold start out there. Some glimmers of sunshine, especially across western areas of England and Wales, but often quite cloudy as we go through the afternoon. So there is going to be a lot of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain, especially across the south and east and across the English Channel too. But there will be some breaks in the cloud, the best of the sunshine once again across Northern Ireland and Scotland. It will be cold here though, with temperatures struggling here at around 5 or 6 degrees, but across the south holding up at around 8 or 9 degrees. So it's going to be another cold start across Northern Ireland and Scotland as we start Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. A lot of cloud across much of England and Wales. Again, thick enough just for some patchy rain and drizzle at times, but for most of us it's largely dry, and as we go through the week, higher pressure remains, but it'll be still largely cloudy with some overnight frost and fog. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Rupert Lowe, the Reform MP for Great Yarmouth, joins me now. Lovely to see you this morning, Mr. Lowe. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Can we talk about this Elon Musk...
Morning, Camilla. You've got me at a disadvantage this morning. I've got a terrible cold and an eye infection, but I'm here.
Well, we give you a round of applause for soldiering on through. Do you know what? You're in good company on GB News, because we had our Christmas party last night, and some people are nursing their own unique illnesses, Rupert. Let's just put it like that, as we try and soldier through this show. Now, listen, can you please give us some clarification on this proposed Elon Musk donation? It's all very well Nigel Farage laughing it off, but it was on the front page of a national newspaper, this idea that the X and Tesla founder is going to be giving Reform up to $100 million. Is it true or not?
Well, I don't know whether it's true or not, Camilla, but I hope it is. I think Elon Musk is about to do a fantastic job in America, and hopefully he will repeat what he did at Twitter, cut out large quantities of dead administrative overhead, and return America to being what it should be, which is the capitalist example of the world.
OK. But I thought Reform was a sort of anti-globalist movement, and yet you're quite happy to have a foreign investor plough all this money into your British political party.
No, I think we're pro-sovereign nations, Camilla. We're pro-accountable government, which can be kicked out if it doesn't perform. We don't like globalist organisations. What we like is sovereign nations who basically work together to trade with each other freely. and generally sort of they're accountable. That's what we like.
But hang on a minute, isn't Musk, of anyone, the head of a global organisation? I mean, I appreciate you're probably talking about the IMF and other such bodies, but in what world, if he did give you this money, doesn't that place Nigel Farage right in Elon Musk's top pocket?
Well, I think the globalists, Camilla, have hidden behind this increasing amount of bureaucracy, licensing, lawmaking, and the rule of law is not the rule of law. So I think anybody who cuts that away, a bit like cutting away the dead wood, is to be applauded. And I applaud Elon Musk. He set his businesses up himself. He's built it up from nothing. I know how difficult it is to build up a business, and I applaud anybody who does it. And unfortunately, anybody who does it now is fighting the forces of government, who are basically like a headwind trying to stop you achieving anything. And if you do achieve it, taking all your money away.
What would Reform have to give Elon Musk in return for his investment in your party?
Well, look, Elon Musk is his own man, and I think he will make his own decision, Camilla. But I will, as one of the 5 Reform MPs, I will welcome him in any way he can help us. So he can't help us directly because he's an American citizen, but he could help with in other ways with think tanks and other things. But I'm concentrating, as you can probably see, on exposing quite how ineffective Parliament is. I'm doing my best. I think the 5 of us are showing that if you had a proper opposition, we would be able to expose the idiocy, the stupidity, and the lack of competence of not only the front bench, but most of the Labour Party and the entire civil service. And we intend to do that when we win the next election, Camilla.
OK, so when it comes to winning the next election, how is Reform feasibly going to do that? I was at your press conference last week, had a long chat with your new chairman, Zia Youssef. Clearly, he's putting the hours in to professionalise the outfit. You've had your first defection from Dame Andrea Jenkins. Are there, first of all, more in the offing? We've got a story in the Mail on Sunday today to suggest that Suella Braverman and her husband are considering jumping the Tory ship.
Well, I think Suella's husband has joined us. I mean, I don't think we want to be the home for every Tory who decides to defect, but there are some good Tories. Because the Tories
want everyone you can get, don't you?
Reform is reform. And in answer to your first question, look, we're a young party. We are putting in the infrastructure. We are intending to do our best. But I think people know that when you have a young company or a young political party, we might be a bit rough around the edges. We don't have the answers to everything. But if you read our contract with the people that we've drafted so far, it's based on common sense and logic. And anything that we do will continue to be based on that theme. And I think, Zia's doing a great job setting up the structures. He's got the necessary skill set to be able to do that. Meanwhile, we're doing what we need to do in Parliament. So in answer to your issue on the Tories, I would say to you that the Tory party is currently broken. Kemi Badenoch, who's an extremely charming lady, has got a huge job to do. The first thing she's got to do is clean out Tory party head office, which is not fit for purpose. And the second thing she needs to do is purge her party of the MPs, the Cameronite One Nation Tories, who are not Tories. Now, we can do that. We can do that because we can attract those Tories. So if she can't do that huge Herculean job, then Reform is now there to unite, and I don't call it right, far right or anything else, to unite common sense and start to get some sensible government back into Britain. That's what we can do, and we're doing it.
All right.
Look at the polls.
Are you saying?
Look at the polls.
Hang on, I know the polls are looking very positive for Reform, and we've already spoken about that on the show this morning. But sorry, in reference to your comment earlier about we don't want Tory rejects, sorry, are you saying you don't want Suella Braverman? If Suella Braverman wants to come across to Reform...
we don't want every Tory to come over to Reform. There are Tories who speak common sense and are logical and have been extremely frustrated by the split within the Tory party, many of whom should be Lib Dems. They should go and join the Lib Dems, not be Tories. They're not Tories. So I think sensible Tories will hopefully come over to us. But what I said is we don't want every single Tory who feels like they want to come and grub themselves a seat with Reform when we do lead the polls, which we surely will.
OK, all right. So you don't want sort of left-leaning Tories. We can understand that. Richard Fuller, the former party chairman, now the shadow chief secretary to the Treasury, has said that ultimately all Reform are going to do, and I appreciate this argument's been well laboured, it was well laboured during the election campaign, but he's not wrong when he says that, again, you're just going to split the vote and let Labour through. I mean, this is the problem. Unless the right unites, you're going to probably have to stand back and watch another Labour victory. I appreciate they've had a terrible 5 months, but we've got another 4 years of this. Who knows what might happen? It might improve.
I mean, look, it's like Groundhog Day. You ask this question every time. The fact of the matter, we did stand down.
I ask it to try and get an answer if I can. Yeah.
I'll give you one. Always give you the same answer. The fact is we did stand down last time. And how many what majority did the Tories have in 2019 thanks to us standing down? 80 seats. Tell me one thing the Tories did with that majority which you think they should be proud of. One thing.
But that's not the answer to the question I've asked. The answer to the question
it is
how does Reform address the criticism that all you're doing is allowing Labour to be victorious again? You're standing from the sidelines saying they're rubbish, they're rubbish, they're rubbish. The Conservatives are echoing you in saying Labour are terrible. We can't have more Labour. And yet, because you both won't cooperate with each other on the right, Labour and the Lib Dems are better at politics than you guys. Labour and the Lib Dems cooked up a victory. Reform has got 5 seats. The Tories are on their knees. You guys need to get your heads together and you need to unite the right.
We did cooperate last time and we gave the Tories an 80-seat majority. Labour, don't worry about Labour. What you've got is a two-party system which is serving itself and it's serving the civil service. It's not serving the British people. So the issue is the monopolistic two-party Reds and Blues. And the British people are seeing that now. What we need is a light blue, new colour, new party change. And don't worry about Labour. Labour are doing their best to eviscerate themselves. You know, they're not going to win the Red Wall seats, nor are the Tories. We will. They're not going to win the coastal seats, nor are the Tories. We will. A lot of the communities, you know, that have been let down, we will win. London and Birmingham, can I say we'll win those? I mean, they're almost lost causes, Camilla. You know, there's the problem, as we know, is immigration. It's causing the country so many problems everywhere. It's responsible for almost every issue that we've got. And yet, as you quite rightly said in the previous interview, which I caught the end of, did Labour, in their sort of whatever it is, 5th iteration of their relaunch, did he even mention immigration as a major issue? No. That tells you what the problem is.
Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the human rights lawyer Paul Conrath, who will be here in the studio, and he'll be joined by football fan Lindsay Smith to explain why they're threatening legal action against the FA following the rainbow armbands controversy this week. It's going to be a great interview, very insightful, and kind of speaks to this idea of cancel culture by the Football Association. Stay tuned for that. Don't go anywhere.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Following the summer riots and the resurgence of far-right ideologies, the former Education Secretary told peers that reinforcing shared values is now more crucial than ever.
So we're asking this morning, should we teach British values or would it be a step backward?
Or how do you even start? To debate this now, we're joined by the Campaign for Real Education chairman, Chris McGovern, and political commentator Matthew Stadlen.
Well, I think these days, particularly in schools, it's quite fashionable to look at the negative sides of Britain's identity, particularly British history. Personally, I think I'm very proud of being British, and I think we need to be proud of our country like most other countries around the world are.
As Chris says, Matthew, lots of other countries do it. Heck, you only have to look at the United States, don't you, to see how sort of patriotic they are. Is there anything wrong in trying to instil a bit of that amongst our youth?
I'm just worried it sounds a little bit communist, Stephen, being told what it is to be British. I've got my own personal but very vague views of what British values might be: inclusivity, patience, being able to queue, decency, respect for democracy and the rule of law. But I mean, very many people will have different sets of values. Some people are racist. So are British values racist? You talked about the far right. I think we all know what the far right is. It's sort of violent, xenophobic racism. But if you have, say, I don't know, 3-4 million people in this country who might describe themselves as racist or far right, and they're British, or as British as you lot and as I am, does that mean those values get taught in schools? My worry is it's a little bit communist.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday, we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. A leading human rights lawyer is threatening to sue the Football Association over its use of rainbow armbands and laces, claiming it breaches rules on political impartiality and clothing. The lawyer Paul Conrath joins me in the studio. I'm going to speak to him very shortly, but first I want to speak to one of his clients, Lindsay Smith. Lindsay, lovely to see you this morning. Thanks so much for coming on. Just explain to our audience why it was that you were banned from Newcastle United games until 2026 and had your membership revoked.
It all happened, I think it was last November. I just got an email saying I was under investigation for a hate crime. And it was basically because I'm quite vocal about trans ideology. I'm vocal about single-sex spaces, and I'm vocal about lesbian, gay and bisexual rights. I've said things like trans women are men. You know, I don't believe in the transitioning of children. And they took umbrage to that, I suppose, and decided to spend months secretly investigating me and getting the Premier League involved. And it culminated with them reporting me to the police and having me pulled in for an interview under caution for a hate crime.
And what was that like? I mean, nobody wants to be pulled in by the police for anything, but for the police to be basically policing your thinking probably felt quite Orwellian.
It was bizarre. I think that's the only way I can really describe a lot of it. It was frightening. It was bizarre. I still find it all quite bizarre that, you know, just me voicing my opinions online has resulted in all of this, to be honest with you. You know, I do count my blessings that I found myself with the likes of Paul and everybody around me to help me fight this.
Yes.
But it's been a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So.
And Lindsay, tell us about your fight, because I know you're supporting Paul, and we'll get onto this wider issue around armbands in just a moment. But your case, how's that going? What are you trying to achieve in your specific case?
I think generally it's getting the ban overturned. They've dug their heels in about it all. So I'm not really anticipating getting my ban overturned anytime soon. But the wider thing of it really is just is getting all of this nonsense out. You know, that they haven't got the right to do this to people just because they don't agree with some views I'm sharing online, and just because I have a certain outreach on my social media, it doesn't give them a right to then take probably the only joy I have in my life that actually helps me forget about everything, you know, which was looking forward to my match days every week, you know. I mean, I still follow them, I watch them every week, but I would be lying if I said that something wasn't broken in everything.
No, I can imagine. You've been a Newcastle fan all of your life. Also, it begs the question, what do your gender-critical views have to do with your support of Newcastle or football?
Nothing at all. Nothing. But I can't see how it has anything to do with it. The club have openly admitted that I've never said or done anything in the ground. It is just because, and their wording is that it was offensive what I said. So because it was offensive, they've stripped the right for me to watch them home and away.
The irony is that anybody who has been in the stands at any football stadium anywhere in the UK and the world, literally, if you can leave the stands not being offended by something one fan or another has shouted in your ear, you'd be a very good person. Lindsay, hold that thought, and I'm just going to bring your lawyer, Paul Conrath, into the conversation now. You're representing Sinclair's law firm, and you are launching this case about the FA. You're representing Lindsay, but this is about something bigger. Explain it to us, Paul.
It is Lindsay's concern. It is her case. And her concern is this, is that the FA, the Football Association, and the Premier League have teamed up with Stonewall in this Rainbow Laces campaign. And the veneer of the campaign is it's inclusive, it's about respect. And of course, we totally accept that. People from every constituency, LGBTQ, religious, whatever, all should be respected for being a human being, of course. But there's something deeper and a bit more sinister, actually, in this campaign. And it's created a hostile, oppressive environment, actually, for people like Lindsay. In fact, she's in the position she's in today because of this very type of campaign that's been going for the last 10 years.
So this whole campaign is about diversity and inclusion. We must wear the rainbow armband so that gays, bisexuals, trans people feel included in the environment. However, what we don't want to do is include anyone that doesn't subscribe to our own gender ideology. So if you're gender critical, I'm sorry, you're excluded, and you're not just excluded kind of like on a sort of philosophical basis, you're actually going to have your season ticket taken away in the case of Newcastle.
And gender critical, I mean, this phrase has real practical meaning. It means Lindsay is concerned that for men playing in women's sport, she is concerned about biological men going into women's changing rooms. She is concerned that if she expresses an opinion, trans women are men, that she'll get banned, of course, which has happened. And so there's something very oppressive and profoundly impacting about what's going on at the moment.
And just on the law, Lindsay's right to say that trans women are men, that is as protected, is it, as Stonewall's right to criticise Lindsay, if I've put it that
absolutely right. That gender-critical view, we can call it, has been recognised by the courts as protected in law. And so here there's discrimination. You know, if you hold to gender ideology, that you can be born in the wrong body, Stonewall can say that, but also Lindsay can say her views, that that's not correct. And in fact, she can raise concerns about these issues, as many other people have concerns.
And what is the kind of law around the wearing of these armbands? Because I'm confused on it. I thought that in the Premier League, players weren't able to display any political statements. Is the Pride armband, in your mind, a political statement?
Well, absolutely. The laces and the armband are part of a political campaign. And this is very...
I'm just going to counter-argue and say, no, well, they'll say it's part of a kind of human rights movement. It's just about including people who are gay and lesbian and transgender into the football scene.
Yeah, but it's quite open here. When you look at the material that's been put out by Stonewall on this issue, they're saying our campaigns are here to change practice and policy.
We're just seeing an image now of the player Mark Gahey. He's worn the armband, but he's also suggested, he's kind of worn his Christianity on his sleeve there by saying Jesus loves you. That's courted some controversy this week. There's this argument that he should be wearing the armband but not with any slogan on it. So are they saying that if you put a Christian slogan on, that is political?
Well, the rules actually ban religious language and imagery and political language and imagery. And what's here is essentially is a double standard. It's just rank hypocrisy. The FA are saying we'll sign up to this ideology and we'll promote the LGBT activism and political cause.
Yes.
In other words, men in women's sport. You can't disagree with with someone's gender identity.
No. But also, what's your view, for instance, there's a Muslim player, isn't there, Sam Morsy, he plays for Ipswich Town. he doesn't want to wear the armband. Would you fight for his right not to wear the armband, even though I know that you are obviously pro-inclusivity when it comes to people who aren't heterosexual?
Yeah, he should be... In fact, he shouldn't be wearing the armband. If he was following the rules, as he is doing, he is following the rules.
So you're saying no one in the Premier League should be wearing this armband?
Absolutely.
Should they be wearing any armbands? What about, you know, it's Remembrance Sunday, we're all going to have a black armband on. Is that political?
Well, here we're concerned about a very contested political issue, which is about gender ideology, gender identity, men in women's sport. That's the... this is a very contested political point. Whether these other matters are political is maybe an open question and is a matter for debate. But what is clear in this situation is that this is political.
How about Black Lives Matter? Was that political? When people wore armbands and took the knee on football fields across the UK?
I think it's probably fair to say it was.
OK, so you're saying that the FA is actually breaching its own rules with its support both of rainbow armbands and BLM?
Well, the focus of this case and the direction of this case is about the Rainbow Laces campaign. That is what we're focused on. And we're saying, actually, politics should be out of football. We want to come together on that which unites us, on not that which divides us.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm off to get the rest of my Christmas decorations up at last. It's a bit late, but I hope that we'll be jingling our bells and covered in baubles. Take care.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland, with plenty of winter sunshine to start the day, perhaps even with some freezing fog patches around that may be slow to lift. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of blue sky once again, but there will be a touch of frost too, so a cold start out there. Some glimmers of sunshine, especially across western areas of England and Wales, but often quite cloudy as we go through the afternoon. So there is going to be a lot of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain, especially across the south and east and across the English Channel too. But there will be some breaks in the cloud, the best of the sunshine once again across Northern Ireland and Scotland. It will be cold here though, with temperatures struggling here at around 5 or 6 degrees, but across the south holding up at around 8 or 9 degrees. So it's going to be another cold start across Northern Ireland and Scotland as we start Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. A lot of cloud across much of England and Wales. Again, thick enough just for some patchy rain and drizzle at times, but for most of us it's largely dry, and as we go through the week, higher pressure remains, but it'll be still largely cloudy with some overnight frost and fog. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every